Right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Beat and Ask series by Dr. Wealth. And just to make sure that you guys can hear us, if you are tuning in, please type yes, you can hear us, okay? Because we totally have no feedback whether you can hear us, all right? So just type a yes if you can. So today I have Aaron with me, and he's the founder of Mount Lion, and the site was started in 2015. So I believe if you guys are into travel, into miles, credit card, getting miles by spending on your credit cards, then definitely you could have came across Mount Lion, right? But for those who are probably in a more of a cashback camp, so I just want to mention that Mount Lion is a travel hacking site that has taught more than 100,000 people each month how to travel better for less through credit card, airline, and hotel loyalty programs. Okay, so probably now you are thinking, oh, you can't travel, and what are you gonna do? Right, especially with your mouse card. So that's the purpose of getting Aaron today to share with us more about this new normal and probably pick his brain, right? Because he's very into this travel industry and whether we can travel once again. All right. So thank you, Aaron, for coming in today to share your precious views on the travel industry.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So we know that Singaporeans, I think not just Singaporeans, a lot of people love to travel, and I believe that you started this site to cater to this group of people that loves to travel and how you can hack it and travel as cheaply as possible, right? So what actually gave you the idea to start a very mouse-specific site? Because travel can be a very big thing, right? But it seems like the way that you name it, right, Mount Lion, it sounds a lot more closer to Mouse credit card. Can you share with us a little bit?
Yeah, so I'm kind of weird in the sense that a lot of people love the destination. I love the destination too, but I love even more the getting there part, right? So for me, that very often is the highlight of the entire trip. The flight over, right? The overall experience, and I just didn't think that it was a case that if you want to save money, the only options available to you are economy or budget travel, right? Given that we have all these different credit card, airline loyalty programs. And when I was in my previous job in consulting, flying quite a lot for work, accumulating miles and points here, I realized that there was a way to take all these miles and points and turn them into a great vacation for myself. And in doing so, I came across what's known as travel hacking. Travel hacking is basically the idea that you don't need to be rich to fly in business or first class, right? There are all these loopholes, programs, loyalty schemes that exist with the express purpose of getting you into the premium cabin without you having to pay for it out of pocket. And that's kind of like the genesis of the Mount Lion, the idea that anyone can fly first or business class provided you have the right credit card strategy.
Okay. And probably, is it a privilege because through your travels with your ex-company, you accumulate the points and the miles a lot easier? Is it even possible for someone who doesn't travel for work?
Yeah, I mean, I won't lie. It's definitely a big asset if you can travel for business because there's nothing sweeter than spending someone else's money and getting reimbursed for it. So it definitely helps. But that in and of itself doesn't have to be a decisive factor as to whether you can play the mouse game, because all of us are going to have major big ticket events in our lives, whether it's a renovation, whether it's getting married, whether it's, God forbid, something like a major medical bill. You're going to have all these events that happen, which you need to pay one way or another, right? And then the question is, how do I get the biggest return on my spending, right? Because like it or not, that bill still needs to be paid. And if you have to pay that with cash, or you pay that with debit card, you're basically throwing money away because the banks are willing to rebate you something in the form of credit card rewards in exchange for you using that card. And insofar as the merchant doesn't charge you a surcharge for using the card, which it shouldn't be, right? That's basically free money, right? You're just leaving it on the table if you pay in cash or if you pay with a debit card. So I know people who don't travel at all for work, right? People like teachers, people who are accountants and don't travel, and they're still able to plan their spending, which they have to do anyway, right? In such a way that they're able to generate a healthy amount of miles every year for a vacation. So obviously, having business expenses makes it easier, but not having them doesn't mean that you can't turn those big ticket items into free travel.
Okay, I must admit that I'm also a beneficiary of Mile Lion. Okay, I took their advice to stick to one bank for the cards. Otherwise, you may have often points. I remember that was what I read, and eventually I got a altitude card. I get a woman's card, right? So that was like one of the hacks that you mentioned in your website. So I still use them today. Okay, and we all know that COVID-19 has struck, and leisure travel is. We don't know when it will come back, right? So sometimes I do even find myself, right, because I also have a everyday card, which is more like a cashback, right, kind of thing. What should I use now, right? Because if I collect the miles, will I be able to use it in the near future? So what is the situation right now? What's the strategy to play?
Sure. Now, look, I think how you approach this question really depends on your overall time horizon, right? Because clearly you can't really use your miles right now. No one can fly. You can't even leave the country, right? So the utility of miles right now has fallen quite a bit. But the question is how long you see this going on for, because I have to believe that at some point in 2021, leisure travel will come back on the cards. We see around ASEAN, as well as in Asia Pacific, Australia and New Zealand, well, maybe a bit less Australia right now, but definitely New Zealand, countries which have managed to bring their infection numbers under control. And when that happens, all the talk of travel bubbles, all the talk of free movement between certain countries, that at some point in time will have to expand to leisure as well. And because of that, I pretty much think that 2020 is a write-off for leisure travel. I think Lawrence Wong was very clear about that. Don't expect to travel for leisure this year, and that's not ideal, but it's still fine because your most some bank credit card points don't expire. Those which do will probably have a longer than a 1-year expiry period. And it comes down to where you think we're going to be in 2021, because I can tell you, if we can't travel for leisure for the whole of 2021, it means something's gone very wrong, and we're going to have a lot bigger problems to worry about than travel then. So the way I see it, earning miles instead of cashback still gives you that area of flexibility, because you need to remember when you earn miles, you're technically earning bank points, right? And those bank points can be converted into statement rebates. Now, the rate's typically not good, but every once in a while, you see certain banks rolling out very good promotions. Case in point, recently, American Express on the Platinum Charge Card, what they did was they said, okay, normally the rebate rate is 1,000 points at $4.80. We're going to double that, right? If you're not familiar with Amex points, it's the equivalent of earning a 2.4% cash rebate on everything, right? Which was pretty amazing, because I tell you, there is no cashback card out there that will give you 2.4% cashback. So the fact that I had points, right, with Amex meant I could take advantage of that promotion. Whereas if I had used a cashback card, like say the Amex True Cashback, right, I would have taken my 1.5%, but I wouldn't have the option to take advantage of such other promotions. So I think the element of flexibility is also quite important. And I understand that there are some concerns from people. They're saying, okay, so what happens? Is the airline going to devalue the miles, right? Maybe I've got 100,000 miles now, but who's to say that those 100,000 will still have the same value 1 year from now? I think most people listening would be involved with KrisFlyer, so I'm just going to use KrisFlyer as an example. I think there's a couple of important things to remember here. Number one is that Singapore Airlines is not going under, right? Government has been very clear about this. Singapore Airlines, national treasure, they're going to do whatever it takes, in the words of Lee Hsien Loong, to keep it afloat, right? Number two is that devaluations are a non-cash event. You don't generate money when you devalue your mileage currency, right? So the only reason why you might devalue is maybe you want to lighten up your balance sheet to help with your capital raising. But keep in mind that Singapore Airlines has already secured that capital, right? We saw the raises from Temasek. We know that they have deferred the arrival of some new aircraft with Boeing and with Airbus. And we know that they've taken out further loans secured against some of their existing aircraft. So I don't think they're going to see devaluations as a way of shoring up the balance sheet for further capital raising. And let's also keep in mind that devaluations tend to happen when there's too many miles chasing too few seats. And even though we've had cutbacks in terms of capacity, Singapore Airlines has grounded a significant proportion of its fleet. When you look at the load factors, Singapore Airlines just released its most recent quarterly statement. It's still very low, right? So this is not a situation where mileage passengers are competing with revenue passengers for seats, because that's what the airline doesn't want. In fact, the opportunity cost of a mileage seat now, or even within the next 12 to 24 months, is going to be very low, simply because don't think that the minute travel becomes possible, everyone's going to rush out. People like us might, but there are still some people who are going to take a wait-and-see approach. There may be some people who have elderly family at home, some people who have pre-existing conditions, some people who just don't feel the ease to travel, right? So it's going to be a small, it's going to be a gradual ramp up, the way I see it. And I really cannot see any scenario in which KrisFlyer miles specifically would be at risk of a devaluation within the next 12, 24 months. Famous last words, but that's how I see it.
So it's interesting that you mentioned that that it's not going to be like a sudden jump in the travel numbers, and you are saying that it's more likely to be a slow creep up in the travel numbers, right? So maybe we do ask the audience, right? So if let's say you're allowed to travel in 2021 next year, okay? How many of you would jump on the first plane out of Singapore, right? If you would actually travel in 2021, just type yes in the comment box, so you get a sense whether this is something that you're ready to do the traveling, because it might be a case that the vaccine may not be even being found, right, or being circulated. So I because even for myself, I'm not sure whether I can say yes, but I guess my wife would definitely say yes, because she has been dying to travel. You just make a comment today. Okay, so Leon said that he will travel in 2021. So I'm not sure whether I agree with you that it may creep up. I thought my kind of idea was more like a pent-up demand suddenly just got released.
Okay,
the pressure.
Let me nuance that, right? I think just like staycations, the minute it's possible, you see a spike, right? Just like we saw a spike for staycations, like every single hotel. Well, a lot of the hotels that Channel News Asia now spoke to, right? They're saying they're completely booked out, and it's been crazy demand, and that's understandable, because I mean staycations only became possible about slightly over a month ago, right? So there's clearly an element of pent-up demand. The question is, just like staycations, I think it's going to taper off towards end of the year, right? Maybe not, say, drop to very low levels, but it's definitely, we've definitely had that initial spike first. I think the same will come with travel. There'll always be a group of early adopters, right? But we also need to remember that it really depends on your profile and your overall risk tolerance. So if you're someone who is tired of just being at home all day, or being in a situation where you can drive from one end of the country to the other in like 40 minutes, and you want to go overseas, yeah, sure, right? But there's a couple of reports. There was one published by a think tank in San Francisco, right? It's talking about what kind of recovery we're going to see in terms of travel once restrictions are lifted. And I think it says that there'll be a small initial spike, which we call the early adopters, right? After that, it'll kind of taper off a bit before you get other people who have said, okay, well, I'm going to hear what people have to say about traveling, right? Because, I want to read reviews. I want to hear from friends what it was like. And that would take like a couple of months to happen before eventually, when people get greater confidence, maybe a vaccine is found, maybe it isn't, more traveling becomes more, say, socially acceptable, because now there is a trend towards travel shaming. I think then it kind of picks up again. So I think it really boils down to each person's individual circumstances. But yeah, I mean, if I could travel, assuming government restrictions weren't in place, right? Assuming it was possible to take a vacation to, say, Thailand, for example, I'm pretty sure I'd be one of the first to do that.
And we seems like we have a lot of early adopters in the audience today. So when we asked the question whether people will travel in 2021, nobody said no, right? Everybody said, those who commented said yes. Okay.
Singapore Airlines is going to be very happy to see that.
So I'm not sure, right? So some say depends on destination. Okay, so if you can travel and you want to travel, which is the country that you would love to visit first?
New
Okay,
Zealand.
please type it in the comment box. Right? So for Aaron, it's New Zealand. Why New Zealand in particular?
Because they've got their stuff together, right? I mean, they've really got it together, and I would feel look, see, New Zealand's mostly an outdoor place, right? So I understand some people might want to go to Bangkok, but maybe the idea of a high density city being indoors in shopping malls most of the time, even if they've got numbers under control, that might not sit well with some people. But you think about New Zealand, right? Big open spaces and drive for miles and not see anyone, right? There's sheep everywhere. It's the outdoorsy type trips will probably recover sooner, I think, as compared to urban-based indoors, right? Shopping mall kind of stuff. That's just my take on it, really.
Okay, so no shopping fix. We got quite a different destination, Thailand, right? Probably the resorts maybe, right?
Yeah,
Japan.
beach in Thailand, yeah.
Poland, that's an interesting one. Poland.
Japan's very urbanized though, but at the same time, I guess they've also, I can't remember what Japan's numbers are like, but, and of course they do outdoorsy stuff too outside the big cities. Yeah.
Probably Hokkaido, right?
Yeah.
More the non-city areas, right?
But I actually think it's not so much of a question of where we want to go, but who wants to take us. Because let's be honest, I know in Singapore, whenever we announce the numbers, we always got like dormitory cases, community cases. I guarantee you, no one sitting overseas that way. They just see a total number, right? And as long as that total number is triple digits, we can forget it, right? But considered to be kind of like a leper colony. So this is more of a thought experiment. Until those numbers come down, I think it's quite encouraging. We're seeing fewer and fewer cases. They're clearing the dormitories. God willing, this will be under control in the next month, right? And then we can start talking travel bubbles.
Okay. So I think you have a point, right? Because probably relative to some of the countries out there, our numbers are still high, especially as a percentage of our population, right? So maybe it's not that our government don't want us to travel. Maybe it's also that our neighbors don't want us to go over and spread the diseases to them. That's a good point. All right. So I just find it. There's one guy who said that Thumb said he would choose Poland as a destination, right? Yeah. If you can share more, right? Yong Xiang, right? Yeah. Why would you choose Poland? I'm very intrigued by that choice, because a lot of people. The rest of the destination are quite popular, right? And I thought that those I can understand, but Poland is a very unique place to go as a first destination after we are allowed to travel, right? And given that now the COVID-19 situation, and your advice is to continue to use the miles card to clock your expenses due to the possibility of us traveling in 2021, right? But if we go more tactical, is there a change in the strategy? Like maybe you change the cards that you are using now? Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? Online retail, online shopping has picked up in a big way over the past few months during circuit breaker, right? People buying groceries online, so congested you couldn't even get a delivery slot for weeks. A lot of people's spending has shifted in that direction, which means that you want to focus on cards with online spending bonuses. So you mentioned earlier DBS Women's Card. That's a fantastic choice, and men can apply for it for the 1,000th time, right? Men can apply for DBS Women's Card, and that gives you 4 miles per dollar on the first 2,000 of online spending every month. There are other choices too. City Rewards Card, online spending first $1,000 every month, also 4 miles per dollar. HSBC has just revamped their Revolution card. So for most categories of online spending like Qoo10, Shopee, Amazon, etc., that will be 4 miles per dollar on the first 1,000. And that's pretty good, because if you just use like a standard, say, City Premium Miles DBS Altitude card, you'd only be earning 1.2 miles per dollar. So you're basically leaving 2.8 miles per dollar on the table, which is a substantial amount, right? So just think about average in 1 month, how much you're spending is online. Take that, multiply by say 2.8, that's how many miles you're missing out if you just use a generic Premier Miles or OCBC 90N card for all your online spending. I'm also trying to look at cards with more transfer partners. So Citibank, for example, has 11, I think, at last count, 11 different airlines to transfer to. And I think that's useful because in the current environment, I mentioned I have no real concerns about airlines. I may not be able to say that about other airlines as well. So the idea is that you want to have some flexibility in case one particular airline does decide to do a devaluation or does go under. It's still useful to say, okay, I've got 12 different partners. I just pick a different one. You might want to look at banks with longer points validity because your holding horizon is going to be a bit longer. No real issues here if you're with, say, I mentioned Citibank, right? That's approximately 5 years of validity. HSBC is about 37 months. DBS Women's Card is only 1 year, so that's something you may want to note of. So if your DBS LTD doesn't expire. I'm sorry, there's a lot of different rules for this. It's sometimes more confusing.
It's amazing, right? Like one has to keep up with so many of these changes.
It's not ideal.
Yeah, but thankfully you cover a lot on mountlion.com, right? So
yes. An easy to refer to chart that will tell you every bank, how many months validity, who are the transfer partners, what's the transfer fee, etc., etc.
Yeah, how do you keep up with this?
I guess it's just kind of natural for me. I mean, I'm the kind of weirdo who goes to read bank terms and conditions when I'm bored. So if something happens, I guess it just filters to me pretty quickly. I mean, I guess everyone's got their own hobbies, right? And if you're really into something, it doesn't feel like work to watch and keep updated with it. Policies don't, well, in terms of expiry and stuff like that, that doesn't really change very often. Banks can change the features of a product. That does happen. Fortunately, most of them will send you a SMS. I think MAS mandates that if it's a major product change, they do need to inform customers. So as long as you're not completely not paying attention, you should be able to catch most of these things.
Okay, so if you guys come keep up, you know where to look for, right? The information will be on mountlion.com. So just all right. So someone has already done the work for you, and you don't need to read the fine prints. Okay, and I'm also a beneficiary, as I mentioned. Right, I'm still using the woman's card. Yeah, it's really fantastic. And I didn't know that a guy can apply that until
and you still feel really manly, right?
Sorry.
And you still feel very manly, right? So
of course. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. I in fact I asked a lot of my guy friends to apply for it as well. So they were a little bit apprehensive at first, but after they tried, they realized that actually it doesn't matter.
Funny story about that. I was once, so you know how some airlines require you to show the credit card you used to make payment for at the check-in counter. So I used my women's card because it's online spending, right? I was overseas, and the guy took one look at the card and said, "Sir, this is not your card. It says women's card on front." Right. So it was a once-off, right? It was a very strange conversation, but
yeah. So it's fine, right? Especially now you do a lot of online shopping. I think that is one of the good considerations. Okay.
Yep.
And you mentioned about airlines and partnerships, right? And we also know that the airlines are not doing very well. We have bad news, like even for SQ, they just had a group of people that has gone for no pay leave, right? I think just this morning, right, the news was out. And we also see some of the airlines overseas that are getting into trouble. And of course, the concern would be all these loyalty program, and would they jeopardize our miles eventually, right? So if like you also mentioned that if let's say we can't travel next year, it's going to be a lot worse than what we will be experiencing or expecting, right? So but I guess people are still concerned and worried about airlines going down, right? That's the worst thing for a miles collector.
Yeah, sure. But as I said, I don't think there's an existential concern about Singapore Airlines right now. If I were holding miles in, say, Virgin Atlantic or Virgin Australia, I'd probably be a bit more worried, right? But we're going to see two types of airlines, right? There are the state-supported airlines, so Singapore Airlines, Malaysia, Thai, etc. And then there are the more private sector ones like the Virgin Group, for instance. The latter could be in some trouble, right? It's very clear the government of Singapore will not let Singapore Airlines go under. it's very clear the Thai government will not let Thai Airways go under. Right? All these airlines are much more important than just national symbols, right? They're also important sources of employment. Think of how many people are directly or indirectly employed in the aviation sector. And think of how much Singapore Airlines or Thai Airways contributes to the local economy. Right? So I'm not overly concerned about either of those. Now, if you are looking at, let's say, a private sector carrier like, say, Virgin Australia, Virgin Atlantic, then yeah, I don't think it's the best time to be putting miles there, right? Because there's no guarantee the government's going to step in. And I think that was the case in the UK as well, where they support, I can't remember whether they built up BA. I'll get back to you on that. But definitely Virgin Atlantic didn't get the support they were looking for, right? So I think the way I see it is this. If you're a KrisFlyer member, I really don't think there's much to lose sleep. Yes, you can't use your miles now, but they were still going to be there next year. Right? The airline's still going to be there. And your miles are very unlikely to face a devaluation over the next 12 to 24 months. I'm not going to say forever because devaluations are a fact of life. They do happen. But when you look at the evidence now, the inflation pressure is simply not there, right? Because mileage passengers are not competing with revenue passengers for seats. The opportunity cost of a seat right now is very low.
Okay. So, which means KrisFlyer should be fine, right? And I actually only have one, which is KrisFlyer account, so I should be glad that it's safe.
And I get that people have a kind of fear about this, and I completely understand that because it's like there have been instances in the past where the airlines unexpectedly devalued and they dress it up in nice language or by enhancing the program, yada yada. But here's the thing, right? Someone is not sitting in the Singapore Airlines office right now thinking, how can I best screw the KrisFlyer members? Right? That's not how it works. And if you think about it, right, devaluations aren't as simple as just saying, okay, your miles worth 1 cent now is going to be worth half a cent or whatever tomorrow. Remember that for many banks, selling miles to airlines is a very major revenue stream. For many airlines, selling miles to banks is a very major revenue stream. So what's the accounting implication if you devalue your miles? Well, it also means that the amount of revenue you recognize from selling to the banks is less. And the question is, are the banks going to be willing to pay the same price, right, if consumers do not value the miles as much? So there's kind of a delicate balance here, insofar as the airline can't jeopardize that source of revenue. American Airlines earns more money from selling miles than they do from flying people. Now, I don't know what the figure is for Singapore Airlines, but it's a very big business for them. And we are seeing actually quite a few of the banks rolling out promotions for miles cards, surprisingly. So we're seeing OCBC Titanium Rewards at a major promotion on online shopping. We've seen other similar promotions for Citibank, right? We're seeing some stuff for DBS as well, which means that the banks are still buying the miles from the airlines, right? There's still demand for that. But that's contingent demand. No bank is going to start buying miles in huge quantities if they see a massive shift towards cashback. And I think airlines need to be very careful about that golden goose. It's not as simple as saying, okay, let's just devalue so our balance sheet looks better. It's actually a very complicated decision.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so glad to hear that miles will be safe and the banks and the airlines are too involved in this to make it not work, right? And I also believe that you are also into hotel loyalty programs, okay?
Yeah.
And since we can't travel, staycation is, of course, the next option that we can have, right? So any interesting things to look out for at this point in time, anywhere that you should stay, right? Because I suppose that there should be a lot of good deals that's coming out during this period.
Yeah, there's some pretty great ones. As you know, since Singapore is not accepting short-term visitors, the hotels are effectively relying either on stay-home notice people or on local demand from staycations. And consequently, we have seen a lot of pretty good deals. Right? I won't say all of them are fantastic. In fact, people need to be very careful because not every deal is a good deal. But on the Mile Lion side, I've been regularly compiling the different staycation deals and picking out which ones I think are great. And this boils down to what your budget is. So on one extreme, if you're looking for something that's cheap and good, I think both Hotel G and Hotels Aloha have very attractive packages. Hotel G, $130 net for 2 nights if you buy through Trip.com, right? Yes, it's not the snazziest. I mean, it's not the most upscale of places, but it looks pretty good on the website at least. I have stayed at Hotels Aloha. I thought that was a pretty good experience as well. It's just over $100 for 1 night, and you're in the middle of Cheong Siak, so you have got a lot of nice eating places. Kind of a young, hip boutique hotel. Don't expect lots of space, or even a swimming pool. But if you want to change your scenery, pretty good. And then on the other extreme, for those people who have money to burn, you've got Raffles Hotel, right? Is doing something that's pretty unprecedented. They are giving you 2 nights, as well as some other things like F&B credit and all, for about $936. And I know that's a lot of money. That should not be spent lightly. If you are struggling for cash flow now, that's absolutely not something you should be doing. But if not, consider that 1 night at the Raffles normally costs, in good times, at least $1,000. Right? So they're giving you 2 nights, 936. And I was just there last weekend, and it's completely full. The package is really, really popular. For many people who would not have dreamed of staying at the Raffles Hotel, this is probably your first best chance. We're also seeing a lot of other deals somewhere in the middle. So Mandarin Orchard had a pretty decent one. I think for about 240 net, you get a club room. So you see the evening cocktails, you can drink yourself silly, right? Breakfast, 1 night stay, heart of Orchard Road. But seeing some decent-ish deals for Shangri-La as well. Although I hesitate to say that because, but what's interesting is that when staycations were first announced, hotels had really, really fantastic deals. I think 2 weeks later, they realized there was a lot more pent-up demand than they realized. And some of those deals started increasing in price, or they cut some of the benefits, right? So still good, but not as fantastic as it was at the start. When Shangri-La first launched this one package, it gave you all-day champagne and lots of other frills like free discounted massage, free breakfast, everything for about like $595. They jacked it up to like almost $700 after that. So I think hotels have caught on that the market's not as soft as they thought it was, and we're really seeing, in China they call it revenge spending, right? It's kind of like revenge staying. People have been cooped up at home all day. They really just want to change the scenery, and consequently the deals now are not as fantastic as they were 2 or 3 weeks ago, but there are still some gems to be found.
Okay. So because you also mentioned just now that daily it peaks once we are allowed to do staycation, and you probably expect that the demand or the interest will come down again, right?
Taper off a bit,
Taper off a bit. Okay. So does it mean we should wait a while more?
Look, it also depends how desperate you are to get out of the house, right? If you want to do a staycation this coming weekend, there are good deals to be found. I promise you that, right? So, by the way, HSBC, I just remembered this weekend they're going to be doing a special 20% off on Agoda staycations. So again, something to look out for if you have a HSBC card. Look, Singapore's not going to open its borders anytime soon, so hotels will be reliant on local demand, right? And that means that they will have to offer special staycation packages. Now, like I said, not all of them are great deals, but I've kind of done the sifting. So over on the Mile line, we've got different articles covering different price ranges, those who want a luxury hotel, those who want mid-range, those who want budget, right? And I do think that we're definitely going to see more deals in the next few weeks, next few months. Keep in mind, 180-ish hotels have been approved for staycations so far. But that's not, we've got almost 400 hotels in Singapore. So there's still quite a few hotels that are still going through the vetting process, or maybe they're still taking SHN guests. But as the demand for SHN facilities winds down, we're going to see those guys coming onto the market as well and offering their own packages, right? So like the Regent Hotel still doing SHN, Park Royal Pickering, right? And I think when that happens, there's obviously going to be additional deals.
Okay, but I also think that some of the great features of a good stay in a hotel is the pools, the buffet, right? All these are probably not available now, right? And it just makes you less. Yeah, exactly, right. So what are you gonna do at the hotel?
Sure. So I've done quite a few vacations since the restrictions were lifted. It's mostly for the website, so I can write the reviews. I will say this. I don't think on the whole, the experience is that much worse than it was before. Insofar as, yes, there's some inconveniences, check in everywhere, wear a mask, whatever. But the pool's still open. It's just that they've got capacity restrictions. And in some cases, that actually works out better because think about a place like MBS, right? I mean, everyone is at the pool. It's so crowded, you can't find a place to sit. Now, at the very least, they need to control that capacity, right? So at least you know that if you go there, you're not going to fight with people to get a seat. You know that you're going to have some personal space. And quite frankly, it's a system I wish they'd done a long time ago. Like you pre-book a slot and show up. So there are some aspects, especially if you hate crowds, right? That's not going to be so much of an issue now. On to the point, yeah, it's true. No more buffet breakfast, but we are seeing hotels innovate here, right? And what I like to say about this whole situation is that we're going to see very soon which hotels are using COVID-19 as an excuse to cut costs and which are using them as a way to innovate. So there are some hotels which will just like completely gut the breakfast selection. I'll just give you a bento box, right? You don't like it, too bad. That's what you get. But there are others which will try to innovate by doing things like, okay, you know, we do an a la carte buffet, right? We can still offer smaller selection of items, but they'll all be very high quality. Same with your happy hour, right? For those who book a club room. Some hotels may say, okay, I'm just going to give you soft drinks and pre-wrapped sandwiches. But there will be other hotels which will go above and beyond. They use the situation to try and say, okay, can we do like small bites? You know, maybe we can do like since there's no more communal bottles of wine and all, let's do tastings, right? And it really boils down to what the philosophy of hotels management is, because I do know there are hotels out there which really will be cutting costs, and that's unfortunate, but it's going to become apparent very soon which is which. So apart from that, I mean, gyms are still open. Yeah, the hotel bars are closed. I'm a bit confused about this because I thought in phase 2 bars could open as long as they don't have entertainment. But apparently not. In all the hotels I've been to so far, bars not there. But your kids club is there, swimming pools there, gyms there, breakfast is in a different format. What else do people do for staycations? I mean, that's pretty much my business.
So,
right?
so maybe in my context is that I would want to consider a staycation, but more for my kids, right? So that they can enjoy themselves as well, rather than being trapped at home most of the time during this period. So if in my case, where should I go? Do you have any ideas?
Oh, wow. Okay, no kids yet. So my selections may not be ideal. Shangri-La does have a special package for families. Quite a few hotels do. I remember there's a special like kids zone facility, which name escapes me right now, but you should look at it. I think it's called Family Staycation in Shangri-La. Just Google that. You should find something.
So Shangri-La.
We're seeing oh my god, was it Fullerton? Well, it's either Fullerton or Fullerton Bay, one of the two. They've got this cute little package where they'll give you a tent for your room and like a projector to show stars on the ceiling, so your kids can imagine they are camping. If you like that kind of thing, you know, it's worth taking a look at.
Okay.
And
that sounds interesting.
Yeah, it is kind of cute. Yotel in Orchard's a mid price about $185 a night or so. They've got like a robot staycation where, you know, they've got these robot butlers and they've got a special session for the kids to interact with the robots. It's kind of good fun. I might geek out with that as well. So look, I mean, the hotels know that there's going to be like two main kind of audiences, right? The families and the couples, right? And the catering packages.
Okay. So I'll definitely check them out, right? So some of these things definitely sound interesting. Yeah, because I was also wondering, since a lot of all these hotel facilities may not be open, you know, even if we go staycation, kids will find it very boring, just another room, right? And they stay inside. So definitely some of these ideas worth looking at, especially for
messing up someone else's room than your house. So, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a change of environment, right? And to keep the kids occupied as well, rather than, you know, the parents now have to entertain the kids most of the time at home. And we didn't manage to mention about hotel loyalty programs, right? So would that be also part of consideration, like besides the deals, whether some loyalty program that you can leverage on as well?
Actually, not really. And the simple reason is that Okay. With hotel points, it's not a great idea to use them when cash rates are low because the value you get is also lower. And the fact of the matter is we're seeing a lot of staycation deals now. So cash rates for rooms are as low as they've ever been, right? And therefore, it means when you use your hotel points, you're not getting very good value. So that doesn't really play into my equation. But there's one exception. The exception is if your hotel loyalty program adopts what's known as fixed value points, right? So typically, most hotels will use more of a traditional system, where say I've got 8 different categories. A category for hotel costs say 40,000 points, regardless of whether the room rate's $1,000 or $100, right? So obviously, when the room rate comes down, your value per point has also come down. But programs like Accor Hotels, Accor Live Limitless (ALL), they use what's called a fixed value point system, saying 1 point is worth well, in their case, 1,000 points, 2,000 points is 1,000 points is worth 40 euros or 2,000 points. I can't remember offhand. But the idea is that when it's fixed, right, and the cash rates come down, then your points go further because it's fixed value, right? So mathematically, that's what happens. So in fact, for my recent Raffles Hotel staycation, I said 936 is a good deal, but it's still not cheap. And no, I'm not going to pay $936 for a staycation. I used my Accor points, which I got from the recent Standard Chartered Edge Card sign-up bonus, right? I paid 54,000 points, and that covered a total of $1,700 worth of staycation expenses, right? So that's an example of when fixed value points become very useful. However, in general, for people who are not really involved with hotel loyalty programs now, there's no real compelling reason for you to let that drive your decision. I would tend to look for whichever one is the better deal. Keeping in mind that some of these staycation packages may not even qualify to earn hotel elite points. So, for example, the Andes had a really fantastic deal, like $180 net for a room, but that's not eligible to earn Hyatt points. So it's a nice bonus if you already participate in the loyalty program, but I wouldn't call that a major driver.
Okay. Yeah, again, there are so many things to look out for. The devil's in the details, like hotel have their loyalty program, airlines have theirs, and then banks have different kind of miles cards to compare, right?
Yeah.
So I guess people can just head on to Mile Lion to figure out all these things, right?
Exactly. That's a great suggestion, Alvin. And it's a lot of advice.
Yeah. Because I myself is kind of lazy in this area, but of course everyone loves a good deal, including myself, and definitely during this period, I believe there are good deals around. If we just spend a bit more effort to even bother to read a little bit, right, to figure out where to look out for, I think that'll be very helpful, right? And I understand that is there like a Telegram group that you have?
Yes, so we've got 2 different Telegram groups. One's a channel, so every time a new post goes live, whether it's a staycation deal, whether it's some fantastic bonus, you have it pushed to your phone. So that's called the Mile Lion Roars, ROARS. You can look for it on Telegram. The other one's just a big Mile Lion chat group. So just look for Mile Lion, the Mile Lion on Telegram. We've got 8,600-ish people in the group and non-stop talk about Miles 24/7. It is kind of noisy. I'm going to be the first to say that is the case when you've got 8,000 people in a room. But hey, you can always mute the group if it's too noisy. And that's a good place for you to ask questions about credit card strategy, about loyalty programs, etc., etc.
Okay, so you have 2 separate Telegram group, right? One is called Mile Lion Raw. That's more for the deals.
That's just a push. So there's like a channel notification, just like like what Klook or Chope or whatever has. And then there's the Mile Lion group, which allows you to actually chat. So t.me/Mile Lion is the chat group. t.me/Mile Lion Raws is the Telegram channel.
I see Keith has already put up the links, the URL in the comment box. Right?
I love you, Keith.
Okay, and so if let's say I want deals, I'll go to the Mile Lion Raws, right? So do you work with any hotels or any partners to do like specialized deals for your audience?
Yeah, so it depends on what you're looking at. So we do work with some of the banks closely, and from time to time there are exclusive promotions. So currently we're working with American Express, and if you sign up for the Mile Lions links, there's additional points or miles that you don't get when you sign up for the public website. In terms of hotels, I'm also trying to talk to a few to see whether they're able to offer some special rates. But honestly speaking, there are a lot of great staycation deals out there. It's not really that necessary. In terms of other promotions, I mean, it really depends on when. Historically, we have done special offers, like when people sign up for like Accor Plus, right? They get a further discount. Or maybe when people sign up for like, what else? What else have we done? Like, sorry, I'll use the example of Miles Life. The Miles Life is no longer available, but you also get some bonus there. So every time there's a special deal, the Mile Lion Bros channel is going to have coverage in it. So, subscribe to it. It's going to push you all the good stuff. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. So if you are too lazy to figure out, at least join the group to get some of these deal flows. Otherwise, you'll miss them out totally. Okay. Because we also know that recent years, Airbnb is getting a lot more popular, right? And now we can't travel, so that's not a consideration. But speaking of that, right, would a hotel loyalty program be less relevant in this new era of Airbnb?
It's interesting that you mentioned Airbnb because they're actually going to be one of the biggest companies to suffer during this time. For a very simple reason that unlike a hotel, which can have brand standards, right? I know if I go to a Hilton, all the rooms will be clean to this specification. It's not easy for Airbnb to roll out something like that. I mean, I know they're going to try. They're going to have their own certification program probably. But here's the thing. Are people going to feel more comfortable staying in a hotel chain or an Airbnb type property, especially after what's happened? And I'm going to wager it's going to be the hotel chain. Because when you look at what's been going on, right? How do I know that a particular property on Airbnb has been sanitized to whatever expectations? Does Airbnb conduct audits? I mean, you can have that seal of certification, but it doesn't mean that that's being regularly enforced, regularly checked. So this article on Fast Company of Forbes talking about how Airbnb could actually be one of the biggest losers in what's happening right now. Simply because when people start traveling again, I do think they're going to default to hotels simply for extra peace of mind. That said, it's not going to be forever. Eventually, people will come back to Airbnb simply because the rates are competitive. So it's not game over for them, but just in the near term, I don't think it's going to be competing with hotels for business. I mean, even if you think about it, right, if you're traveling for work, most major companies' HR departments will probably specify that you need to stay in one of these chains, which has been certified as they've got certain brand standards, certain cleanliness standards. That's going to become a bigger thing. So even Airbnb, they were making a big push for the business market not too long ago. They've got these certified for business travelers, like 24-hour check-in and stuff. That's going to hurt for a while as well. And Airbnb has had some significant layoffs as well quite recently, right? So I don't think Airbnb will be on my radar for the immediate future.
Okay, let's ask the audience, right? So once we are allowed to travel and we can go overseas, would you stay in an Airbnb place or would you rather go for a certified hotel? Please put that in a comment, right? So if you would consider Airbnb, just type Airbnb. Okay, interesting to find out. I myself, of course, I should agree with Aaron. I'll be afraid to stay in because you have to trust the owner of the place to do all the cleanup and things like this, right? And Airbnb is not going to
and I mean, I know that hotels aren't angels when it comes to this. I know that there will be hotels which, despite all the certifications, still don't do things properly. It's just that I feel there's more of an enforcement mechanism when you talk about a hotel chain versus Airbnb dealing with millions of properties, each one so different, right? It's a lot easier to standardize when you're talking about a chain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's a trust, right? So no matter what, we will still trust the hotel will take care of the quality a lot better than a random homeowner, right? That's just out there.
People during this time are going to default to the more familiar, simply because, let's face it, it's a pretty scary world now compared to 12 months ago, right?
Yeah, definitely.
For me personally, I might not even feel comfortable traveling to certain countries within the next 2-3 years. And I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's the world we're in now.
Are you comfortable to share which country you actually avoid?
Well, definitely any country that's not got their numbers under control, but we're also seeing more subtle things, right? I tend to think that the impact of COVID is going to be felt way beyond the time the virus ends, because you read reports about racist attacks overseas, right? People targeting those who look Chinese. Depending how the U.S. election turns out in November, whether or not they adopt a new direction or not, it's going to be. I mean, what's the best way of saying this, right? There's always going to be that kind of feeling that you're a stranger in a strange land, that this is not home for you. So even if 99% of the people there are fantastic, friendly, and welcoming, all it takes is that 1%, right? And it's just going to play on your mind a bit. And I do think, for better or worse, right, unfair as it may be, I think people may default to traveling to regional destinations first, simply because of the familiarity factor. And yeah, I mean, again,
they're just
how we say this, because it's unfair to say that an entire country is dangerous. Everyone there is racist. Absolutely not, right? That's totally not what I'm saying. I'm saying that when you read what's going on, it's only natural that people may feel a bit apprehensive of going to far off destinations straight away.
Yeah, that sounds like you just mentioned US to me.
Well, certain parts, I guess, certain parts of the US, I probably wouldn't want to be in right now.
Okay.
Again, it's not a US-centric problem. This is ultimately a people problem, right? It's not a question of countries. It's a question of fear, question of people not understanding not understanding things properly. And if there's one thing that COVID-19 has done, I mean, there have been fantastic stories of people helping each other out, right? In the healthcare industry, in the food delivery, people going beyond the call of duty. But you're also seeing, unfortunately, the politics of fear, right, being capitalized on. And that's resulted in people who look different from you, right, being afraid.
Yeah. So definitely, I feel like the world has become more divisive, right? Because of politics, right? Because people just want to take advantage of the situation to enhance their position. But that's not the topic of this show. Okay, we should stay away from politics. And I do see some of the comments. They are probably quite interesting. Like George previously mentioned that because you talk about Amex, right? And I think this is a very common question. A lot of restaurants don't accept Amex in Singapore. So they feel that even the cashback, they can't get it if they can't use the card. What do you have to say about that?
Well, look, if card acceptance is an issue for you, then there are other good dining cards. I think he mentioned restaurants specifically. So HSBC Revolution, right? It's a Visa card, and they offer you 4 miles per dollar on dining. So that's definitely an option. If you're a lady, maybe UOB Ladies Card, right? That's a MasterCard. Every quarter, you can choose a different bonus category to earn 4 miles per dollar. You can pick dining as your bonus category. That's also an option for you, right? Maybank Horizon, it's 3.2 miles per dollar. It's a bit lower, so I'll probably go for the Revolution, but it's also possible. Fact of the matter is, Amex, yes, acceptance isn't that great. However, most major restaurant chains would have it. And remember that American Express Platinum cards have the Love Dining program, which to me is one of the best features because it's 50% off when you dine with 2 people at a lot of normally really expensive restaurants like Skirt at the W Hotel, or all the restaurants in the capital, Kempinski Arcade, or St. Regis, or Woolloomooloo Steakhouse, right? There's a lot of very high-end restaurants which normally would be way too expensive. Go with 2 people, 50%. I wouldn't say it's cheap, but it's definitely cheaper, right? And that's one of the best features of the Amex Platinum card. So don't write off Amex just because acceptance is an issue, right? And it's probably because acceptance is an issue that they have to offer programs like that in the first place. So.
Yeah, I do know that the deals for Amex dining deals are damn fantastic, right?
Love Dining is fantastic program. So please take a look at it. It's really good. And sorry, the other thing about Love Dining, it's better than Entertainer because Love Dining is 50% off the whole bill. Entertainer is 1 for 1. So you order 1 main course, that 1 main course of equal or lesser value. If Entertainer is 50% off your appetizers, 50% off your dessert, 50% off the main course, not for drinks, right? But 50% off appetizers, dessert, and you're not in a situation where, like, if you use entertainer, you always feel obligated. Like, if one guy orders the more expensive one, then you need to order something around the same value, because otherwise it's not really worth it. But if it's 50% off, then it doesn't matter whether one guy orders expensive, one guy orders cheap. It's still 50% off. So the mechanics are a lot better.
Yeah, and I love Amex customer service. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it is fantastic.
So probably you pay a higher fee because or the restaurants pay a higher fee because they need to give you a better quality of service, right? So I think it's fair at the end of the day. Cheryl also mentioned that DBS points can use to redeem vouchers, right? So I guess it was the point about, if let's say you can't convert to miles, what can you use with the points, right? So I believe there are some banks that allow. Is that a good strategy?
But it's not great. In fact, I go so far as to say that if you're holding points to convert to vouchers, you might be better off using cashback in the first place. Yeah, it does give flexibility, and every now and then they might run a special promotion. So, like, not DBS, but OCBC, they've started a portal called Stack, STACK, where you can redeem your points for merchandise or vouchers and all. And normally that's not good value, but every now and then they run flash sales where you can use your points at a higher than normal rate. And some of those deals could make sense. I mean, I personally got a Dyson cordless vacuum cleaner using my OCBC points because the rate on offer was really good, right? It was giving me the equivalent of about 1.6-ish cents per mile, which for me is, given what's going on, is a decent value to cash in at. Yeah. But again, it depends from bank to bank. So OCBC Stack is pretty good. DBS vouchers, not good value at all. So I wouldn't recommend that specifically.
Okay, so you got your answer. And Yingzi was saying that your review of Hotel 81 was hilarious.
Oh yeah, it's fun.
Would you be able to share about that?
I'm not going to be welcome back there anytime soon. So for those guys who don't know, I was saying that, I tried to review as many staycations as I can, because a lot of interest in it now. So it's good for the website, right? It kind of drives content. People are looking for staycation reviews. Why not churn out a few? I want to do staycations across a range of price points. So I have done the Raffles Hotel, but I've also done the Sloha, which is like a fraction of the price. And I thought, hey, why not try out the Hotel 81, which has $79 rates? So went to the one in Hotel 81 TriStar. Full disclosure, told the wife what I was doing. Stayed there for a night, or at least tried to stay there for a night. Found interesting things in the room. I bought a very cheap UV light on Q10. And Hotel 81, as I'm sure everyone is aware, is a place for intimacy, put it one way. So I was just shocked that the place passed SG Clean certification, right? I mean, found a cockroach in my room. I found weird stains on the floor. I found stuff that I probably shouldn't have found. So look, I mean, Hotel 81 is not competing for the staycation market. Let's just be very clear about that, right? No one goes to Hotel 81 for a staycation. Hotel 81 knows what they're offering, delivers on that thing, and it has a purpose, and it serves the purpose very, very well. As much as
that's just not for normal people, right? So for families, right? Yeah. Okay, we have a question.
Is that, in the Hotel 81, I stayed in what's called a family room. It was quite big. So there are some foreign tourists who don't know better who end up in Hotel 81s. It's kind of funny. Yeah.
So yeah, Keith put up the link again, so you can go and read more about it. I'll go and read out on that. Zhao has a question, and he's asking the expiring KrisFlyer miles. Should he use them to book for flight next year, or should he use it for the current KrisShop promotion? Yeah, because I think he has some time pressure. The KrisFlyer's miles are expiring.
Well, first of all, Singapore Airlines has suspended expiry, so I wouldn't be concerned about that. They've extended the expiry of all miles by at least 6 months, right? So don't worry about expiry. As long as COVID goes on, Singapore Airlines will continue to extend it. So you should not be in a situation where your miles are going to expire. Check your account balance, because Singapore Airlines will only renew them in the month they're going to expire, right? And I promise you that none of your miles until, I believe it's April, until December this year, right? All of those miles are safe for now. And I'm sure they will continue extending the miles as warrants. So
Okay,
don't spend
that's
on free shop. It's not good value. Just wait, things will get better. Singapore Airlines will extend if needed.
okay. That's good news. So don't be pressured to convert your mouse to do all the other items, right? So just use it for mouse and wait for the renewal. And Ryan is asking, some cards have a number of points conversion airline partners. Which airline would be good for value partner? Okay, not sure I got a question right.
It's a tough question because it depends where you want to go to. Think of airline loyalty programs as like a Swiss Army knife, right? You got different tools for different purposes. So if you wanted to fly like short haul economy, British Airways would be fantastic. If you wanted to go, say, from Singapore to Europe in business class, Turkish Airlines, right, only charges 45,000 miles one way. Singapore Airlines is 92,000 miles. So obviously you spend a lot less to get the same thing. If you want to go to Koh Samui, Etihad Guest is a fantastic program. Lets you redeem on Bangkok Airways. So the question more specifically is, where do you want to go? Because there's no one best loyalty program. It really depends what you're trying to do.
Okay. Yeah. So if you don't know where you're going, then which partner airline doesn't really matter, right? So
So
figure out your
Asia Miles is great for going to Okinawa. In case anyone wants to go to Okinawa, I'm just trying to list a few more off the top of my head. Who else is there? But Asia Miles is also not bad value to go to the US as well, and now they don't have fuel surcharges anymore, so it's pretty decent. Yeah.
Okay, and we spent an hour speaking to you, right? So thank you for your time. I don't want to hold you any longer, and you've been giving us a lot of tips, and despite COVID-19, right? So Maoline is still going strong and covering a lot of staycation. He sacrificed at Hotel 81 just to give you a sense of what you can do in Singapore. Okay, and do visit Mount Lion to get all more tips about travel, staycation ideas. I myself is interested to do a staycation for my kids, right? So I definitely will check it out, and also the deals via the Telegram group, right? The links are all in the comments. Please check them out. And just want to summarize a few things that we have mentioned in this interview, right? So I try to remember, right? So Aaron is saying that if you are using a mouse card, please continue to use them, okay? And he believes that the airline industry will come back and travel is likely to resume in the middle of 2021. Otherwise, if we don't, we probably have bigger problems to fight, right? So that is his theory, right? And a lot of the miles would still, if you want to choose a partner airline, and what he believes is that the KrisFlyer will be probably the most reliable because because it's not going to go down any time soon, right? So and the government has shown the resolve to keep the airline afloat. So your miles are going to be safe, and he also mentioned that the miles, when they are expired, they will be renewed for another 6 months, right? And so we don't need Singapore Airlines. Okay, so don't need to worry so much about it, which means, another tip that he gave during the interview was that because we are probably going to spend more online, right, given the current situation, and there are some cards like the DBS Women's card is a very good online expenses card that you can claim a lot more miles compared to other kind of cards that are more for point of sale kind of purchases, right? And staycation, there are a lot of deals, okay, and they are top end, they are mid tiers. You can all get good deals, and do check out the Telegram group, right? Mount Lion Raw, right? So that is the one that probably going to push a lot more deals to you guys, right? I hope I have covered the main points.
Sounds good. Yep.
Okay. So thank you again once for your time and your valuable views about the travel industry, and it's good to hear, right? Because we can't really travel anywhere now, and it's good to have that kind of confidence that we're going to do so next year. Okay, just wait a while more, right? Yeah. So check out mountlion.com, and this is Aaron.
Thank you for having me. Stay safe, everyone.
Okay. Thank you, and see you next time. Right. Cheers.